There's a silence that only comes after closeness, the kind that fills the room when everything has already been said. When the words have been replaced by touch and you're left wondering if he's thinking the same thing you are. You can feel his breath, still heavy but quieter now. The night hums differently after that moment. Not loud, not soft, just uncertain. And in that uncertainty, your heart begins to whisper. Did I just lose him by letting him in? No one warns you that the first time you let a man touch the parts of you that no one else has seen, he's not only holding your body, he's holding your story. Every scar, every memory, every piece of you that wanted to be loved right this time. And you can tell everything by the way he breathes afterward. Some men turn over, some stay still, some kiss your forehead like they mean it, even if they don't. But what really changes is invisible, the quiet evaluation that begins in his mind, the unspoken measurement of who you are in the rawest light possible. Because yes, whether he admits it or not, a man judges a woman in that moment, not cruelly, not consciously, but instinctively. It's not about morality. It's about energy. He reads you in the silence. How you move, how you trust, how you respond to being seen. He's not just asking, was she good? He's wondering, can I respect her after this? Can I still see her as the mystery she was before I knew her body? And you're wondering the opposite. Will he still want me now that he knows me this way? It's the cruel symmetry of intimacy. Two people lying inches apart, each silently judging themselves through the eyes of the other. You lie there pretending not to care that he's already pulled away slightly, checking his phone, facing the wall. But your heart knows. It always knows. You're already replaying every detail in your mind. Your tone, your laughter, your words after, the way you looked when you stood up to fix your hair. You're thinking, did I seem too eager, too emotional, too open? But what he's noticing isn't what you think. It's not the way your hair fell or how your voice cracked. It's something deeper. Because a man, in that first intimate moment, judges one thing before all else. The way you treat yourself in the aftermath. He watches how you carry your vulnerability. Does your energy shift? Do you glow with self-assurance, or do you shrink into apology? Do you hold your own gaze, or do you start performing, smiling, over-talking, over-explaining, pretending this doesn't mean what it actually does to you? Men are wired to read cues of self-respect long before they read affection. When you shrink, he feels it. When you chase connection from insecurity, he feels that too. It's not what you say. It's who you become once the armor comes off. He might not even understand what he's judging, but he feels it. The invisible energy that says, does she know her value? Or did she just give it away, hoping I'll tell her she's enough? And that right there is the moment his perception shifts. Not because you shared your body, but because he saw what you believed about yourself after you did. You think you're being seen for your body, but he's seeing your relationship with your worth. And this is where so many women begin to lose themselves, because the silence that follows isn't just his distance. It's your self-doubt echoing in the spaces he leaves unfilled. You replay every little thing, not realizing that he's not analyzing your performance. He's reacting to your presence. If you stay grounded, if you move with calm energy, not needy, not cold, but centered, he feels something most men don't encounter often: a woman who doesn't attach her value to his validation. That's the first thing he judges: your energy after the moment. But there's more. He also senses the intention that led you there. Was it connection or fear? Men have an instinct for authenticity that surprises even them. When you touch him from a place of honesty, not performance, not strategy, it disarms him. But when your body becomes a tool to earn affection, something inside him pulls back. He may not articulate it, but he feels a weight that wasn't supposed to be there, an emotional expectation he didn't agree to carry. He's not judging your act. He's judging your alignment. And that's the second way he measures you. Not with words, but with intuition. Did she give from fullness or from hunger? You can feel this too, can't you? That sharp awareness after. That sinking feeling when you know you were more emotionally naked than physically. When you realize the connection wasn't built on mutual desire, but on your hope that maybe this time he'd see the real you. That's the H that lingers. Not regret, but recognition. You've been here before, maybe not in the same room, maybe not with the same man, but the feeling is identical. That quiet fear that you gave too much, too soon, and that he's already halfway gone. You want to tell yourself you're imagining it, but deep down you know the dynamic has shifted. The attention, the warmth, the certainty, it's changed. He's no longer chasing, you are. You start justifying it. He's probably tired. He's busy. He's not good at texting. But you feel it, that sudden imbalance, that invisible power exchange that happens when a woman gives more than she meant to. And the truth, it's not about the act, it's about meaning. Men are not scared of intimacy. They're scared of what comes with it. Emotional responsibility. The weight of being someone's reassurance. The unspoken expectation to make her feel safe when she's already given more than she wanted to admit. And so, in their quiet, self-protective way, they retreat, not always to reject her, sometimes just to regain control, to feel like they're not being pulled into something deeper than they're ready for. But she doesn't see that. She sees distance and blames herself. That's where heartbreak begins. Not from being abandoned, but from being misread. She doesn't realize that what he's really judging is whether she still feels like herself. Because to a man who values depth, nothing is more magnetic than a woman who remains grounded in her own energy, even in closeness. It's the paradox of attraction when you stop needing him to validate your worth. He starts valuing your presence. But to get there, you must survive the silence. You must learn not to chase clarity from someone who's still processing. You must sit with the discomfort of not knowing and still know who you are. And that's the third judgment he makes. Even if unconsciously, can she hold uncertainty without falling apart? Because that tells him everything. Whether you're his equal or his escape, whether you'll meet him as a partner or collapse into a pattern. He doesn't need you to be perfect. He needs you to be self-possessed. Because when a woman moves through intimacy without losing her center, she becomes unforgettable. Not because she played a game, but because she didn't. You can see it in his eyes the next morning, that flicker of something deeper, respect, maybe even awe, because he realizes he touched someone who isn't begging to be chosen. You left him wondering if he earned you. And that's power, the quiet, feminine kind, the kind that doesn't demand or chase or prove. It just is. He might not text right away. He might even pull away to test what he's feeling. But that's okay, because your power doesn't exist in his response. It exists in your restraint. That's where most women lose their power, in the reaction. They confuse silence with rejection, when sometimes it's reflection. Let him process. Let him wonder. Because if he's the kind of man who values depth, he'll come back differently. Not for your body, but for your presence. And if he doesn't, you've lost nothing. You've simply learned who couldn't meet you at your level. You see, the feminine power isn't in withholding intimacy. It's in holding yourself through it. Because the truth is, a man doesn't really judge you by the night itself. He judges you by what that night reveals about your relationship with yourself. And the irony, the more you stand in your own worth, the less you'll care how he perceives you. And the more magnetically he'll perceive you anyway. Because confidence is quiet. Self-respect doesn't need reassurance. And mystery isn't about secrecy. It's about inner peace. And when you have that, you no longer fear what he thinks. You already know who you are. There's a strange kind of quiet that follows every beginning. The kind that doesn't feel peaceful, but hollow, like something invisible shifted while you weren't looking. You feel it in your body before your mind catches up. That subtle contraction in your chest, the way you reach for your phone without meaning to, the way every minute of silence starts to sound like rejection. And that's where the real story begins. Because he doesn't pull away to hurt you. Not at first. He pulls away to understand himself, to measure what just happened against what he's capable of feeling. To ask, do I want more of this? Or did I get what I came for? That's the question that separates boys from men. And it's the question that keeps women waiting for answers that never come. You tell yourself you won't overthink it. You try to stay busy. But the truth is, your body remembers before your brain does. It remembers the way he traced your collarbone, the way he whispered your name like it meant something, the way you let your guard down because for a moment it felt real. And now it's quiet. Too quiet. He's still there. Maybe he's texting, maybe he's friendly, maybe he's casual, but something's missing. the warmth, the pursuit, the edge, the spark that made you feel chosen. You try to fill the silence with meaning. You replay every word, every look, searching for where it changed. But here's the thing, no one tells you the change didn't start with him. It started the moment you shifted from being desired to needing to be desired again. You see, intimacy rewires the dynamic, not because of the act, but because of the attachment it activates. For women, physical closeness often deepens emotional connection. It releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone, the one that says, "You're safe now." But for many men, that same closeness triggers the opposite response: pressure, the fear of losing freedom, the unconscious worry that being emotionally responsible for someone means losing himself in her emotions. It's not cruelty, it's confusion, because deep down, he's judging not whether he likes you, but whether he can handle what you feel for him. And that's the fourth judgment he makes. Can she hold her emotions without making them his burden? When a woman panics after intimacy, texts too much, analyzes everything, tries to fix the silence, he doesn't see her love, he sees her fear, and that fear makes him feel like he's being pulled into something heavier than he intended. But when a woman stays calm, when she trusts the connection enough to give it space, something magical happens. He begins to feel safe in her safety, because most men have never experienced a woman who can stay open without demanding, who can feel deeply without clinging, who can care without control. And that right there is the paradox that redefines his attraction. You become unforgettable, not because you played it cool, but because you embodied peace. But I know it's not easy. That silence is brutal. It echoes every insecurity you've ever carried. It whispers you gave too much. You scared him off. You weren't enough. And that's when the overthinking begins. The overcompensation, the urge to reach out, to explain, to fix. You want to know what you did wrong. But what you don't see is that the very energy of needing to know is what shifts everything. It changes how he feels when he thinks of you. It replaces magnetism with pressure. Because men don't fall in love when they're chased. They fall in love when they miss the feeling you gave them when they were around you. And that feeling only exists when you're grounded in self-respect, not performance. He's not judging your silence. He's noticing whether you trust it. If you fill every pause with fear, he senses it. But if you let it breathe, if you stay connected to your own life, your rhythm, your calm, he begins to feel the difference between a woman who's waiting for him and a woman who's waiting for herself. That's the invisible test. Men don't consciously think, "I'll pull away to test her." But energetically, that's what happens. They need to see if the woman they shared that moment with still belongs to herself, or if she's already surrendered her power to them. If she stays in her lane, glowing, warm, open, but not chasing, he feels drawn back. Not because she's playing hard to get, but because she's living in a frequency most women abandon once they attach. That's the kind of woman who becomes his mirror. She reflects back who he wants to be. Grounded, sure, capable of more than avoidance. But if she chases, if she texts to fill silence, if she overanalyzes, if she apologizes for being emotional, he sees her reflection turn into pressure. And he withdraws further, not realizing he's creating the very wound she's trying to heal. You see, intimacy doesn't scare men. Emotional demand does. Because men associate need with responsibility. And if he's not emotionally ready, your vulnerability becomes a weight instead of a gift. So he retreats, half guilty, half confused. He tells himself he just needs space, but really, he's trying to reestablish equilibrium, the illusion of freedom that keeps him from confronting the depth of what he felt. But here's the truth he won't admit. While he's pulling away, he's still thinking about you. Not constantly, but consistently. You show up in his thoughts when he's driving, when he sees something that reminds him of your laugh, when he lies in bed trying not to replay the sound of your voice. Because even if he doesn't reach out, he remembers how it felt to be with you. And that's what eventually shifts him from avoidance to regret. But this is where your power lies, in what you do before that happens. Because most women in this space start negotiating their worth. They tell themselves, maybe if I show I care more, he'll see my value. But every time you prove your worth to someone uncertain, you teach him that he doesn't have to rise to meet you. You'll shrink to meet him. And once that happens, you've given him control of the emotional narrative. But when you do the opposite, when you stop explaining, stop over giving, and instead choose to trust your energy, the dynamic shifts. He begins to feel the absence of what he took for granted. That's when men realize what they've lost. Not because you disappeared, but because you stopped performing. They remember the softness that didn't demand, the energy that didn't beg, the woman who didn't try to prove she was worthy of staying. And regret begins to whisper. But this time, it's not about wanting your body again. It's about craving the peace you carried before you made him your center. That's the fourth way a man judges you. How you respond when he retreats. Because your reaction reveals your emotional maturity. If you chase, he knows he holds power. If you detach with coldness, he feels punished. But if you stay steady, if you respect your feelings without surrendering your peace, he sees something rare. A woman who doesn't crumble when the validation stops. A woman who understands that love is not earned through effort, but through energy alignment. He realizes that you are capable of loving without losing. And that's when you shift from being an experience to being a memory he can't replace. But this truth isn't about him anymore. It's about you. About how many times you've mistaken silence for closure, distance for rejection, and inconsistency for your fault. It's about how many times you've carried the emotional weight of connection alone. Performing empathy, overgiving, hoping he'll finally meet you where you are. And it's about how you finally stop Because there's a moment, a sacred one, when you realize that every time you waited for him to see your worth, you were dimming your light just to be visible to someone standing in shadows. You don't need that anymore. You don't need to earn respect by proving how much you care. You don't need to beg for consistency from someone confused. You don't need to explain why you feel deeply. You just need to choose yourself in the silence. And that right there is the shift that changes everything. Because the fifth way a man judges you, the one that defines everything after, is this: does she stay true to herself after giving herself to me? When you answer yes to that, through your stillness, your grace, your boundaries, you become the woman he measures every future connection against. Not because you played it right, but because you lived it honestly. Because you showed him what emotional maturity looks like wrapped in feminine softness. And somewhere, even if he never says it out loud, he knows. You were never just another experience. You were a mirror he wasn't ready to face. And that's why he'll always think of you, even when he's with someone else. Not because you gave too much, but because you gave from your essence. And that can't be replicated. That's the real power. The quiet kind. The kind that doesn't chase or explain. It just is. And once you taste that peace, you'll never settle for the noise again.